Content warning. While this video will probably not be terrifying by most people's standards, it will be a bit creepy and it will mention death and ghosts. On the other hand, if you do decide to watch, you can rest assured that there will be no jump scares. I promise. Those are obnoxious, and as an easily startled person myself, I really don't like them. With that said, let's begin. Hey everybody, it's October, so it seemed like a good idea to make a Halloween video. To that end, I'm not going to be doing any media criticism in this video. Instead, I'm going to be telling two personal ghost stories. The two tales I'll tell tonight are things that I have experienced firsthand. Before we get into the stories, though, I should establish where I stand on the question of the existence of ghosts. To put it simply, I'm skeptically inclined. I mean, I've studied just enough epistemology to feel that I can't ever be completely certain of anything, but I do not believe in ghosts. Nothing in this video should be interpreted as me supporting such beliefs. I once had a professor who said, I'll have to paraphrase, but he said something along the lines of, I don't believe in ghosts, but I saw one. That's basically the angle I'm coming at this from. I have had a few seemingly ghostly experiences in my life. They probably have very mundane explanations, but they were creepy in the moment, and I'm going to talk about two of them. Tale 1. Hide and Go Seek. Once, as a young kid, I was playing hide and go seek in my house. I think some of my cousins were visiting. I don't know exactly how old I was, but probably between 6 and 10. I was the seeker. From the hallway, I came to stand in the doorway of the living room. As I gave the room a cursory glance, I saw my younger sister hiding behind a brown rocking chair. It was an upholstered chair, bulky enough that the space behind it would have been an adequate hiding place if she had refrained from peeking. But there she was, her face sticking out from the right side, looking back at me. She smiled, raised a finger to her lips as if to say, shh, and disappeared behind the chair again. It was too late for secrecy. I had obviously spotted her. I went over to the chair, looked behind it, and... well, you might have already guessed it. I saw nothing. Nobody was there. I was confused. My sister turned out to be behind me in the hallway, and she was really there. So who or what the hell had I just seen behind the chair? Pretty fucked up, right? Now, this is an old memory, and I admit I'm uncertain of some details. For instance, I'm actually not sure whether I went and looked behind the chair before seeing that my sister seemingly hadn't been in the room, or if she came up behind me in the hall and then I went and tried to figure out who or what I'd seen hiding behind the chair. I think it was the former. What I do remember distinctly is that I saw her face peering out from behind the chair very clearly. It was broad daylight. I remember her innocent smile. I remember the silent shh gesture of one finger at her lips. And I remember that she had somehow gotten around me into the hallway in a way that seemed impossible. I don't see how she could have gotten around me without being seen. I was pretty creeped out. Now, of course, like I said, I don't believe in ghosts or shape-shifting demons or whatever. I must have imagined seeing her behind the chair. I only saw her there briefly and from a bit of a distance. But how could my brain have fabricated that out of nothing? Perhaps it was pareidolia, the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. Merriam-Webster. For more information about pareidolia, check out David Robson's BBC article on the subject. With insights from Kang Lee of the University of Toronto, it explains, quote, although we tend to think that our eyes faithfully report whatever is in front of us, the retina records an imperfect and confusing image that needs to be tidied up by the brain. And Lee thinks this top-down processing by the brain is what leads to pareidolia. One way the brain makes sense of the mess is by making predictions about what we will see based on our past experience, and then subtly projecting those expectations onto what we see. That way, it can piece together a clearer picture, even if the scene is obscured by poor lighting or fog, say, but it also makes our vision more subjective than you might think. In a sense, you really do see what you want to see. I was looking for my sister, expecting to see her hiding somewhere, and maybe I saw something, a patch of sunlight or a pattern on the hardwood floor, that I mistook for her. Once, years later, I saw a mailbox out of the corner of my eye while riding in a car. For a split second, my mind interpreted it as a large, middle-aged man in a blue shirt. As the car moved toward it and I focused on what I was seeing, I realized that it was, in fact, just a mailbox. Recently, as I was walking in a neighborhood that I wasn't all that familiar with, I thought I saw a man and a girl by the side of the road. As I got closer, I realized that they were, in fact... Yeah, they were actually just one of those big community mailboxes with like a wooden pole in front of it, and my brain apparently just can't process mailboxes. I don't know if that means anything, I don't know if I should be worried, but it is what it is, I guess. I'll link the BBC article below. And yeah, what I saw seemed more vivid than what this article describes, but momentarily imagining something as a kid still seems far more likely than a vanishing doppelganger. Tale 2. Christmas. Yeah, wrong holiday season, I know, but even though this happened in December, it's a ghost story, so I think it fits. Both of my parents grew up in a small town in New Brunswick. They moved away long before I was born, so I never lived there, though I visited frequently throughout my childhood and teenage years. My grandmother on my father's side died some time ago. She left her house, the home my father grew up in, to one of my uncles who had remained in town. It's a stout, unassuming, two-story building overlooking the water, its yard like a flat terrace built into the side of a steep hill. One winter, not all that long after her death, I can't remember exactly how long, my family was visiting for the holidays. In addition to my uncle and his partner, we had other family living nearby. My mother's parents lived up the hill, and I usually slept at their place when visiting town. On the night in question, however, I was over at the little house on the hill. I don't remember whether or not I was planning to sleep there. I guess it doesn't matter. It was shortly before Christmas, and some other members of my father's side of the family were present. It was something of a reunion, and the living room was crowded and festive. The Christmas tree was brightly lit, and extra chairs had been brought in from the dining room. I sat on one of those wooden chairs, enjoying the conversation. Behind me and to my right was the short hallway leading to the dining room and kitchen. The staircase that led up to the bedrooms and bathroom was at the near end of the hall. As I remember it, I had just laughed along with the others at something someone had said when I turned in my chair and glanced backward. You know how sometimes you'll look around for no real reason? So I glanced back at the staircase. There she was, about 2 steps from the bottom, facing toward the full and boisterous living room. I could clearly see my grandmother's face, every fold in her white gown. In fact, she was all white. Or rather, desaturated. The light and shadows on her looked as one would expect, but there was little to no color in her skin or clothing. She stood there, looking just as she had in life but for her paleness, looking down from her slight elevation at the joyous scene below. And she was smiling. Her face was an expression of pride and happiness. As I interpreted her, she looked greatly pleased to see her surviving family gathered together in her old home for Christmas. The image lasted only an instant, probably a fraction of a second. By the time I blinked, she was gone. In the place where I had seen her, the relatively dark wall of the stairwell was illuminated by a patch of white light shining in through a window. The pale light was a rectangle, roughly the size of a human. I was startled when I thought I saw her, of course, but I didn't outwardly react enough to draw anyone's notice. I didn't say anything about it for a little while. The obvious explanation for what happened that night is that I, perhaps a bit tired, saw a white patch over the stairs while thoughts of my grandmother were possibly somewhere in the back of my mind, and I imagined for a moment that she was there. An easy explanation, and almost certainly the correct one. Like I said, I don't believe in ghosts. But I'm not the only one who has reported seeing her in that house since she died. I probably imagined her. She probably wasn't there. But if she was there with her family for Christmas, and she was happy. Well, that's the video. Those are my 2 spooky stories for this week, which implies that there's going to be 2 spooky stories every week. That's not actually the case. I just phrased that poorly. The point is, the video is over. If you liked the music in this video, it's by me. You can go check it out at my music channel, Eternal Sound Collective. I will link that below. And other than that, yeah, happy Halloween. Stay safe out there. And, no, that was it. Bye.